Hello. All right, I guess I'm live now, and it seems like everything's working. I just gotta post this link to. I want to post this live to Facebook. And just wait a couple minutes, see if people join in. How's it going? How's it going? Gonna. How's everyone doing? Happy New Music Friday. Anybody release anything today? I haven't checked to see what's out. I've kind of don't really check New Music Friday anymore. It's kind of a bummer. I should probably be a little more active with keeping up with new music, but I just kind of like will check later on the week some other playlists. Been actually like listening to a lot of jazz lately, just because I've been working a lot of just to like I guess busy music. Um. So anyway, if anyone has any questions, I have a couple questions that I can go through for that some people submitted, and then also if anyone has anything that they want to ask. Um, but anyway, tonight, if anyone knows about tonight, there's this event going on TikTok where the weekend is going to be like all virtual. So it's like this virtual concert. I guess it's going to be sort of like uh, a Fortnite does it, where they must have like done screen captured him, and then he probably recorded live, and then they made this whole like really cool digital virtual reality thing. So that's interesting. I've been following that, especially since now that they're saying like TikTok might be banned. So that's going to be kind of interesting um, that they're doing that whole concert on TikTok, and now it might be banned in like September. This company is called, I think it's called Wave XR, and they do this virtual reality stuff. They did one for John Legend, and now they're doing it for the weekend, and I guess for TikTok. And they're this company that's like based in Venice, California, and they do these like virtual reality concerts. So I could see that being like kind of the new model for artists instead of, because right now the model for artists right now is that they go and they tour for like 2 or 3 months after they release like an album or like some big single. So now what they could do is they hold these like massive virtual concerts where I think in Fortnite, I don't know if it was like Travis Scott did this thing in Fortnite, but he basically did a concert in Fortnite for like 15 minutes and made like millions of dollars in like merch sales just from that, and probably some other things. So instead of artists spending 2 or 3 months on the road touring, they could just from a location within their city do like a virtual concert like once or twice a year, and then make all the money in those one or two concerts, and then focus, instead of their time on the road, focus their time on making content and like more music. So I don't know. We'll see. That could be interesting. Yeah, Diplo just did one, I think, a couple days ago, and he does like little DJ sets. I don't actually have Fortnite, so I haven't watched any of them, but I do like Diplo a lot. I went he was doing on Twitch. He was doing these DJ sets on Twitch on the weekends, and he would like invite guests, but then he stopped, and that was fun because you could like join his Zoom party. And I did that once and joined his like Zoom party, and it's just like a bunch of people dancing in their homes, and they have like flashing lights, and there's some like people who have hula hoops and stuff, so it's pretty cool. Anyway, I guess I can go through some questions that people submitted, and then if anybody has anything that they want to ask, just do it in the chat or anything like music related. For some reason, I'm trying to post this streaming link on Facebook and it's not posting for some reason. Let's see. Best free plugin depends on what you're going for. Because if you want a plugin that does compression, then you wouldn't want like a loudness meter plugin. So I don't know, best free plugin. There's a lot of free plugins. Depends on what you want. There's a spectrum analyzer that I use called Voxango Span, and that one's really good if you don't have a spectrum analyzer. And I do recommend that you always use a spectrum analyzer, especially because you're probably mixing at home and you don't really have a good room to really judge the frequencies. So kind of have to use a spectrum analyzer if you actually really want to know what's going on in your mix. So Voxango Span is a good one. There are these really cool and interesting ones by this guy named Air Windows, AirWindows. And he makes this like really crazy de-esser plugin that's free. And I've actually used that on my most recent songs. And I don't like telling people about those plugins because it's kind of like a secret. And, well, now you know. So go search them and go find them. He has like a bunch of free plugins, like basically anything you could want. And then he does like, he'll talk about them too. So he'll show you how they work. They're not like good looking plugins, but yeah, if you're looking for some free, basically anything, he's got like compression plugins, limiter plugins, de-essers, tape modulators. They're all free. So it's Air Windows. Just search that. So Frank, I see you're here. So Frank at FMVC123. You got a couple questions, so I'll kind of go through some of these. So, any sneak peek on what you're coming out with your paid content? Any release for that content? So basically, I'm doing a course. I'm working on that course. It's going to be a course on mixing and mastering. I am trying to figure out a name for the course. I'm thinking like Modern Mix Academy or Modern Mixing Academy, because for me, like I didn't go to a audio recording school. I just learned from YouTube like everyone else does. And I spent a lot of time doing that, and I've been able to get like pretty good results with my music because it has like millions of streams on Spotify, and I mix all my songs. So I figured I'd put together kind of like a mixing and mastering course for people that want to learn how to mix, who get like who kind of are in the same position where I was, where they're learning from YouTube. They're not like trying to go to school, or they're getting like free plugins. So I'm going to put something together where it's going to be using stock plugins, free plugins. Because a lot of times, sometimes you watch like on my YouTube channel, I'm going to use like whatever plugin like I want because I have a bunch of plugins. But I think for the course, it's going to be things focusing on just the basics for people that don't have all these plugins, because it's frustrating when you watch somebody compress something with a compressor that you don't have. And then you're like, oh, I don't know what's going on because I don't even have this plugin. So I'm going to do it in Ableton. Everyone has access to Ableton for like 30 days. I think it's at least 30 days. You can get a free trial. I use like free plugins. There are other uh, there are other plugins that have free trials. I'll probably use maybe a plugin that has a free trial that you can test out. So I'm actually working on that like every day, putting that together. I hope I could get that out in a few months, maybe in October. So I'm also looking for like, I want to make something that people want. So I'm trying to get feedback from people so that I can structure it. I mean, the thing, like I was thinking also about production, but the thing about production is that production is a little harder to do because I kind of do a lot of different genres, and I didn't want to focus too much on just like on one genre. So I'm gonna because the thing with mixing and mastering is that if you know mixing and mastering, then you know how a bass sound should sound, and so that's going to help you make better sound selections when you're selecting sounds if you're a producer. So you're going to know the end result that you need to get. And if you know the end result that you need to get, then you know how to kind of build into that result. So as you're like finding kick sounds or like going through all kinds of samples, if you know like eventually what it's going to sound or like how you can, because also you start with the sound and it's like, well, you need to be able to know how to get that sound. Like, oh, maybe it's has too much bass, or like, you need to be able to know how to shape that sound. So I think actually just starting with like mixing is probably the most helpful, because even if you listen to like a song that you like, or even if you listen to a song on the radio, a popular song on the radio, you probably haven't actually listened to that song on your speakers at home or like on your phone. You've probably only heard it on the radio in your car. So um you might not actually know how that song sounds. So you need to like take that song that you're hearing on the radio that you like, listen to it on your speakers, on your phone, on your computer, on your Alexa device, and see how it sounds, and then you're gonna realize like it's not that complicated how it's actually mixed, and maybe it's not even a good mix. It's just like, well, what did they do that it wasn't like super distracting? Because sometimes it's just like, how do you make the core of the song and the vibe stand out? So like there's all these people that know how to mix, and it's like, how come they know how to mix, but I don't know how to mix? Like, how come you hear a great song, it's like this person's in like India making great music in their bedroom, and they didn't go to some recording school in Los Angeles, which is crazy because they cost like $80,000. I mean, you might as well buy a Tesla for that, and like, or buy a whole studio for that amount. Because I don't know, I don't really like think anybody should go to recording school. They should just um learn from others, get mentors, learn from their peers. So the next question that Frank had was, any advice for getting your music onto big YouTube channels? Uh, so I would look for, uh, so for the big YouTube channels, SubmitHub used to be really popular for submitting to blogs, but they also have submissions for YouTube channels. So I would go onto SubmitHub and find the bigger YouTube channels and then just submit to those couple of YouTube channels. And they usually cost a little bit more, so maybe like $2 or $3 to submit. So I would probably just do that for getting into the bigger YouTube channels. I just turned down my volume a little bit. I think it might be a little too loud. So go to SmithHub, or just like find their email on their channel and email them. Just email them your song. My other advice would to be find channels that are not big yet, but are on the up, are like coming up, and you think that they're going to get big. So maybe look at channels that have 10 to 20,000 followers already. So for example, there was a channel that I had reposted some of my stuff a couple years ago called Loku, Loku, and at the time they only had a couple thousand followers, and they just kept every time I had a new song, I would send it to them and they'd repost it. So I knew that they liked my music. And I don't know, one day I checked and they had like 900,000 followers, yet they're still reposting my music. And now they were posting my music, which was now getting like millions of plays on it because they had such a big following. And I was like so surprised because I was just like setting my stuff and I didn't really like keep track of their growth. So put together a list of YouTube channels that have at least 10,000 followers that are specific to your genre. So if you're making a pop song, then so a lot of times YouTube channels, they'll repost a popular song to boost their numbers. So go to YouTube, search Dua Lipa, new rules, rank all the channels by followers or like by views, and you'll see like all the channels that reposted that video. And then you can go and hire somebody from like Upwork. Upwork is like a website where you can hire virtual assistants. Hire somebody to compile a list of all those YouTube channels and say, hey, go find me YouTube channels that have reposted this Dua Lipa song that have at least 10,000 followers, and find me the name of the channel and the email to that channel. So you have somebody else go and do this work for you, finding all of these channels and putting together on a spreadsheet, 100 YouTube channels. And then you basically just email all those YouTube channels like at once. And you can do that using like a mail merge plugin. So you can send everyone kind of like an email at once. There's a mail merge plugin that I use to send a bunch of emails called Yet Another Mail Merge. Let me look it up real quick. Yet another mail merge. And I use that if I'm like trying to email a bunch of people instead of having to like individually go and email every single one of them. I set up kind of like a template, and then I'll just shoot them all that template, and it'll kind of like fill in all the information. So that would be a recommendation, because you could have a list of 100 channels, email 100 of them, and maybe like 2 of them reply. So just like, for every song, do that. And yeah, usually, so Frank also asked, does that channel monetize it, or do you still get to monetize your content with YouTube's Content ID? Generally, the channel is going to monetize it if they're going to repost it. If they're a bigger channel, they'll send you a licensing agreement, and then you'll sign that licensing agreement, and then you're going to have to go to your distributor. If your distributor collects YouTube royalties, then you're going to have to go to your distributor and tell them, when that channel posts the video with your song, you're going to have to copy the link to that video and send it to your distributor and tell them to remove any copyright claims from that video. But only if they ask for you, only if the YouTube channel asks for you to remove that content ID should you do it. Otherwise, just leave it on there, because yeah, you might as well make some money off of it if you can. So let me go to the chat. Okay. How do you do volume automation in Ableton Live? Volume automation, well, you go into automation mode. I think it's just you hit A on your keyboard, and then pops up the automation mode, and then you I wonder if I can open up Ableton and show you. But I mean, you just open up the automation mode, and I think if you right click, if you go to the volume section in Ableton and you like right click on the volume, then it'll show a menu for automation, and it says like something about automation. You just like click on the menu that opens up the automation panel, and then you can then automate it. QP View, what are your thoughts on Facebook ads to promote your music? I use Facebook ads to promote I have a vocal mixing cheat sheet, so I have Facebook ads that I ran to get drive people to that cheat sheet and get my email list, to grow my email list. So I think Facebook ads work for growing your audience. I don't think they work for growing your streaming on streaming platforms. I think that's a waste. So it depends on what you are using them for. So if you have a music video, post your music video on Facebook, run ads to that music video. So you're running video view ads. So you're driving up the views. And that is a way that you can kind of get people interested in your music. The thing about that is that, you're just spending money to get views on a video, and maybe you'll get some fans. You can do some type of Facebook conversion ads. So basically, you are converting people, which is what I do. I convert people to go into my email list. So you convert people so I would say, hey, get my free vocal mixing cheat sheet. And then people would click on my ad and then they would sign up, give me their email, and then they would be able to download my cheat sheet. And also it had like an Ableton effects rack. And I'm doing that because I want people to watch my YouTube videos, because I'm doing YouTube videos and I'm basically focusing a lot more on showing people and teaching people how to make music. Because I think a lot of people that listen to the music that I make, which is like pop and dance music, are also musicians themselves. So if you are a musician and you're looking to figure out a way to get people to follow you, like, people want to see behind the scenes stuff. So if you're I don't know, if you're like a guitar player, post videos on like how to play some lick or something in your song, because there's a lot of people that like want to learn, and now with like COVID, like that's the whole thing, is like, how can you provide knowledge to other people and show them how to learn things and provide them value. So yeah, I don't really think Facebook ads driving streaming to using Facebook ads is worth it. Um, Hannah asks, how would you go about selling yourself as an engineer? I look at professional engineers and they sell themselves with the equipment or clientele they have, which I am yet to build. Do you have a Sound Better profile? Because if you don't, do that today. Sign up for Sound Better, get a profile going, and that is how you can get clients as a professional mix engineer. Because all you need one client is to call yourself a professional mix engineer, because it starts with one client. So get a Sound Better profile going. And that's just like automatic, because people are on Sound Better all the time. It's a pretty big platform. It's also like, what type of engineer? Okay, mixing engineer, but like what genre? Because if it's like hip hop, so hip hop works, a rapper will download the beat from like BeatStars and then sing a vocal over it. So the mixing is really easy. And you can charge cheap rates for mixing hip hop. So you could find rappers on Instagram and DM them and say, hey, do you need me to mix your vocal with a beat? Charge them something, reasonable, something super cheap, because all you're going to be doing is mixing a couple vocals with the instrumental, which is already mixed. You can't really mix it. So it'll be easier for you and you'll make some money and you'll get some clients. And then who knows, you can mix one that becomes Old Town Road, If you're doing pop music is a lot harder. So I'd recommend doing Sound Better. And same thing though, finding people and DMing them on Instagram, because DMs work on Instagram. when you watch one of their stories, if there's someone that you follow, DM them through the story, respond to their story, and that's how usually people often respond to that. Luna, hey ho, hello. Um, FMVC sings Frank. When you collab with an artist and you are producing slash mixing the track, and you both own rights to the composition and the sound recording, let's say the artist posts a song on their channel and gets 1,000,000 views, how does the artist give you your share from those YouTube views? I'm trying to think about this. Well, as far as I don't know if BMI collects royalties from YouTube, but if they do, that's how you would get the BMI royalties. That's how you, for the composition royalties, you collect composition royalties from BMI. So if BMI collects on YouTube, then that's how it would just be automatic. As far as the artist, if the artist gets 1,000,000 views on their YouTube video, they'll probably get $1,000. And if they used a distributor, that distributor is going to collect the $1,000, take their cut, and then send that to the artist. And then you are going to have to make sure that the artist pays you. So if the artist is not using someone to collect those, because what happens when a distributor, so if the artist posts the video to their YouTube and they're using a distributor to collect the royalties, the artist will post the video and have a copyright claim, which means that they can't monetize that video because the distributor is monetizing the video. So the distributor comes in and takes all the money and then they distribute it back to the artist. And so that's what the YouTube ID means, is that and so that is good if you have a lot of channels posting your music, because the distributor is going to all these channels and taking the money from all these channels. It sucks though if you are the artist and you post the video and you get 10 million on that video, then the distributor is taking their cut 15% or whatever they take. So that is the drawback of doing that. So if the artist is not having doesn't have some kind of content ID situation set up with their distributor, then they will have to distribute the money to you. So you just have to ask the artist. A million views is about $1,000, so you would get like $500. How do you make sure the artist doesn't secretly keep your portion? Is a trust thing? Thanks. I mean, if you look at the views of the video, you can calculate what the amount is. Also, it depends on the agreement, because if you signed a agreement with the artist, I mean, so who owns the master? Or do you both split the master? Because then that's where it gets hard, because I mean, technically you could have the video taken down if you own the master too, if you don't want the video up. Owning the master is different than owning rights to the master. So owning the master recording means that you both can make decisions about how that master is used. If you own rights to the master, but you don't own the master, then basically you're getting royalties off of the master. So you could give ownership to the artist, yet still split 50% of the royalties from the master. So if you do that, then basically what you do is you have the artist control and do everything, but they owe you 50% of all the money. And you should have some type of agreement in place that says they account to you semi-annually. So, they should be giving you money at least twice a year. And you can always um, request an audit. So you can request like the bank statements or whatever. So yeah, I mean, it is about trust, especially if it's a small amount. If if it's over like millions of dollars that you think you're owed, then you'd probably have to like get a lawyer or something and get the money back. But if it's like, a couple $100, then it's just going to be about trust. Best autotune plugin. Autotune. Wavestune is pretty good. The Autotune Pro, I think, is what I have. I heard that the UAD has a good one that does real time, because Autotune, if you record vocals with Autotune on, there's a delay in the headphones. So the UAD plugin for Autotune is supposed to be real time, so you can have Autotune on and be singing and it be real time in your headphones. Do you have some marketing tips for music? Like, be more specific. Like what? Okay, so here's another question that was submitted by Anna. Anna.Qureshi, Qureshi.184. Do you create music with others' ideas? I need your advice. I mean, I guess that is kind of like, do I copy other people? Or like, use other people's ideas for inspiration? I would say yes. I think everybody uses other people's ideas for inspiration. I think you kind of have to do that to learn how something is made. You got to just like remake things. It's not like you have to like release the song, but if there's a song you like, try and remake something in that style. If there's a sound that you like, try and remake that sound, because that's how you learn how to make things. You just have to like try and remake them. That's kind of like what remixing is about. Remixing. That's why I think like if you're a producer, remixing is important, because it teaches you like getting the vocals already there, the song's already good, so you just have to like build something around the vocal and make it good. And you start with the good vocals, so you just have to like not mess that up. So remixing can help you if you're trying to like get better at producing. My monitoring setup is I have Rocket 5 monitors, which are like 20. I've had them since I was like in high school. They're like 20 years old. I have, or not that old, but they're like 10, at least 15 years old. Um, I have them on top of these things called ISO acoustics, which are these like stands that prevent them putting vibrations onto my desk, and it lifts them up to ear level. So I have them at ear level. And my headphones are these Ultrazone headphones, Pro 750. And I have them plugged into a PreSonus monitor station. When I record, I have a Neve 1073 Lunchbox edition, and I'm running that into a Focusrite Scarlett 2i4. What is your strategy to building and keeping energy in your tracks? Is it automation? If so, what are you looking for when doing automation, and how detailed do you go into automation? Keeping your tracks. I would say automation, in the sense that if I have a guitar part in the verse and in the chorus, I could automate a high cut filter on the verse. So I'm taking off the high frequency information and then releasing the high cut during the chorus so that it brings in more of the high frequencies. So you'll hear that a lot, and that's how you get that nice verse. The nice verse on it is a lot of times people just because now I mean people use the same chord throughout the whole song. So all you do is you just filter off the highs for the verses. Slow, and you can build the automation by releasing the high cut filter a little bit as you get closer to the chorus, and then release it all the way for the chorus. So then basically you're building the energy by using a high cut with automation and bringing in more high frequencies until you get to the chorus. You can also use width. So a lot of times the verses are more mono than the chorus. So the chorus has more information in the sides. So you can bring more panning things on the sides during the chorus. So keep everything pretty center in the verse and then pan things, add things to the sides like different percussion things or synths or whatever. For the chorus, that's where you add in like more harmonies during the chorus. You make them wider. You can keep them a little bit harmonies or backgrounds more centered during the verses and then make them wider during the chorus, and that can give you more energy during the chorus. Uh, um, volume automation, see, you're running everything through a limiter, so everything is going to be highly limited when you master it. So if you want to, I add automation to my master after I've mastered it. So I will take down the verses like 0.5 dB and then put them back to 0 dB during the courses on my master after it's been mastered. So that is a way to like literally make your song sound louder during the chorus. Because if you do it before your limiter, you're just crushing it more because your limiter is going to be taking off the same amount no matter what. So if you push more volume into the limiter, it's just going to make it could just make it sound even quieter because it's working harder and it's like crushing it more. So you have to be careful about the variation in dynamic range between your verse and your chorus, because you don't want your verse to be super quiet and then your chorus super loud, because then when you master it or you try to like master it, like you can't make it the verses very loud because your chorus is so loud, and you don't want to limit the chorus too much. Any plugin you can use instead of volume automation. Volume automation for what? There's bass writer, there's vocal writer. Those things like automate volume automatically for you. I don't think they work if you're using Ableton though. I don't think they work in Ableton. So this is I have another question from Anna. What made you think I could be a musician? I think she means what made you think you could be a musician. I guess that started, I don't know, I played viola when I was really little. And then I started taking guitar lessons. So it just never stopped. If you have two instruments for a verse, like a piano and a guitar, and then your chorus has 5 instruments to really neat up the chorus, How do you level the whole song so that the verse is not too quiet compared to the chorus? Uh, I mean, I don't think I would change the volume. You wouldn't necessarily need to change the volume of the piano and guitar. Like if the piano and guitar are in the verse and the chorus, I would EQ them differently. So like I was saying, take off some of the high information, take off some of the low information, because that's also a thing that you want to bring in during a chorus, and that's popular with like dance music, which is kind of what I do. Is like I'll even put a low cut on the kick for the verse, and then take it off during the drop because that's when all the bass comes in. Or like all of the bass tracks, I'll dip some of the bass frequencies during the verse so it's not too bassy because you want to basically have everything in during the chorus and take away things during the verses. So take out low information, take out high information, keep in some of that like low to uh, mid range, low to mid range information, and that should keep some of the like beefiness in the verse while not making it sound too loud because uh we think things are loud whenever they have like high frequencies, like if things are too like so um you can still keep the volume by just like taking off some of the low end and some of the high end and just leaving in like the mid-range information. Vocals. Vocals. Vocals what? What about vocals? Have y'all seen the Instagram Reels? It looks like now that TikTok's in trouble. So now there's like two companies that are coming in to take over. There's Triller, and now Instagram has Instagram Reels. So now I'm seeing like all these Instagram Reel like TikToks in my Instagram feed. So I wonder if they're gonna like take over just like they did whenever Snapchat came along. And maybe I'll use it because I don't really use TikTok, but I didn't really use Snapchat, but I use like Instagram stories all the time. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff going on. Like, I'm live streaming. There's like a live streams all the time. A lot of producers are on Twitch. So if you want to see how like a lot of producers are producing, they go onto Twitch. I was watching like Disclosure has been doing some stuff. This guy who goes by Oliver, who basically does all of the splice packs that are all the drum packs, like all the drums that you hear now are basically his drums. So you can watch him like produce. Um, like producing though to watch is kind of boring, and because it's just like you're just sitting there going through sounds, scrolling through sounds, and so it's kind of boring to watch. But I mean, it can be cool just to have on and see what people are doing. If your chorus is hitting negative 6 dB because you have those 5 elements and your verse is negative 4 dB, do you automate the master so that the negative 14 dB verse is not too far? Why is your verse so low? I think you need to figure out. I think you need to figure out some way to make your verse closer to your chorus. Because I mean, you want like that's the difference in that the difference in is like dynamic range, like the quietest parts of your song and the loudest parts of your song. And you don't like if I whisper and then I shout, like that's a huge dynamic range, and you don't want too much dynamic range in your song. Um, so I mean, if you have two elements, I guess I don't understand because like make those two elements louder, make those two elements louder than in the verse, and then automate them down during the chorus if they're still in the chorus to fill them in. I mean, the vocals should still be about the same level. You're just kind of like adding in things. Um, and I'm assuming you're saying 0 to 6 dB, you have a limiter on the master. Wait, I guess you don't have any mastering on it. I mean, I guess I don't know because if you put a limiter on the thing and master it, it might be fine. I was thinking you were talking about LUFS, which is loudness range, but you're talking about like the actual volume. So yeah, I don't know. Put a limiter on the master it, and there's I don't know what DAW you're using or what limiters you have, but I don't know. Put a limiter on it and see if it see how it sounds. Put a limiter on it, bounce it down, and look at the waveform. Because what a limiter does is it brings down it brings down everything, but at the same time makes everything quieter. So it makes things that are quieter sound louder, and things that are louder sound quieter. So it might just even everything out. Just slap a like that's what I do whenever I always have a limiter on my master that I can turn on and off. So as I'm mixing, or as I'm just kind of like making my song, I will sometimes I'll just like turn on the limiter and see and pull down the threshold and see like, okay, how does this sound? So that I can get an idea of how it's going to sound whenever I start mixing it. Because you might think that something that it doesn't sound good, and then you put the limiter on it, and you're like, oh, okay, it sounds fine. So, but don't like mix too much with it on, because then you can just start messing things up. So I would just like use it to just as a check to turn on the limiter and see like how does it sound louder. Tips on marketing a new release for growth on Spotify. Tips on marketing a new release. How are you releasing it? Are you using a distributor like AWOL or Symphonic or DistroKid? If you're using AWOL or Symphonic, they have like a form that you should fill out that they use to check. And I mean, they're supposed to do playlist pitching. I don't know if they ever do, because I use them and they haven't really done much for me. Those distributors that say that they playlist pitch. So make sure that whenever you submit your song to Spotify, that at least a week before, that you're using that playlist submit function in the artist.spotify.com dashboard. And that can help you get editorial placements. Okay, DistroKid. Okay, so make sure you're doing that before you release it. Also, find other artists that sound similar to you. You can go onto your page, and your page actually does that for you. So if you go onto your Spotify page, it shows you other artists that are similar to you. So go to those artists' page and see if they are on any playlist. So you can go to the About section, and it'll show you like how people are finding these other artists. So you can look at the playlist that these artists who are similar to you are getting on. And you can go to those playlists, and if they're not Spotify playlists, then they're usually going to be owned by somebody who's just like, you or me, like putting a playlist on Spotify. And find out if you can get information on how to submit to that playlist. Sometimes people will put the information in the playlist description, like submit here to get on the playlist, or you can find their name. You can do some like internet stalking. You can find the name of the person who made the playlist on Facebook and then message them on Facebook, or search them on Google, see if you can find their Instagram, because sometimes they'll have their Instagram. And so I'd focus on trying to get on like independent playlists, just submitting to a lot of them. There's another tool called chartmetric.io, and you can go on that website and do like playlist research, and it might give you some more information. So you can find an artist that's similar to you, put their name in, see what playlist they're on, and just like get information from that website. That's another good tool. Because yeah, most of my playlists come from independent playlists, and that's kind of like what I've done is I'll submit to these playlists and get people to post. Also, like if you're doing like pop music or dance music or actually like any kind of style, you can get people to remix your song. So now you've turned your song into multiple releases. So you make sure you have the acapella to your song. You take your song, put it out, take your acapella, find remixers, and say, "Hey, will you remix my song?" See what they would charge, or see if they will split royalties with you. So if they charge, if you can pay them, then pay them up front, or just like split the royalties with them, the Spotify royalties. What's your method when listening to reference tracks? What do you look for when comparing? I look for something that is a similar tempo. I look for something. So if my tempo is 120, I'm going to find something that is, plus or minus 10 BPM. If I am making a house song, then I'm going to find another house song. If I, if I'm making like a Latin song, I'm gonna look for another Latin song. If it's a male vocal, I'll probably find another song with a male vocal in it. So I want to find a song that is like so you got to spend some time like finding a track that sounds similar to yours. But maybe even before you made the track, you had another track in mind, so you just go back to that song. So get like 2 to 3 reference songs. There's no way that any song sounds as like exactly as similar to yours. So find also like similar length too. And I would then see how loud they are. So I'd run them through a loudness meter plugin, and I would see what the LUFS is, because that will tell me how loud it is. So if the LUF is like -9, then I know that that's how loud I need to make my track whenever I am going to be mastering it. I would also use this plugin is a secret plugin. So it's not a secret plugin, but this is kind of a really changed a lot for me is a plugin called Reference by a guy who, if you search mastering the mix, he has a plugin called Reference. And basically, you could use that, or you could also use I just reviewed the Pro L2 plugin for a limiter. And what it does is it gain matches your song to the other song. So even if the other song is louder, it'll gain match them so you can hear how they both sound at the same gain. So then you can kind of see like what the differences are. Then you want to compare using some kind of metering. So on this reference plugin, it's really easy to use the metering to see, okay, the mid range is too low on my song, so I need to raise that up. Okay, below 200 hertz is too high on my song. Okay, the stereo spread in the high end is not enough, so I need to make it wider for my song. So, I mean, I use that plugin, and uh, that kind of helped me a lot. You don't need that plugin though. You can use Voxengo Span, and you can just take a screenshot of, just put a spectrum analyzer on the reference track. You take a screenshot of it, put a spectrum analyzer on your track, take a screenshot of it, and then compare them and try and EQ your track to match the reference track. If you do, how do you approach artists to be on your tracks, and how do you go about the business side of it? For example, splits ownership, and when the collab. You discuss that. If you do what? Remixes? If you do or like features for featured vocalists. If it's a featured um I mean, what I do to like feature people, I just use Sound Better, and then that's how I find artists now. I'll do that, and then I'll also just like DM them or message them, like send them an email. If I ask an artist to collab, yeah. I mean, a lot of the features that I do are from Sound Better, so that just makes like everything so much easier, because you have a network of people that are down to work with you, because you could find an artist that you like and then send them an email, and then they might not respond to you, or they might say like no thanks. So featuring, yeah, I would do like use Sounder or Vocalizer, I think is another website, VOCALZR. I would use those sites to feature people. That's probably the easiest way. I mean, you have to have money though to pay people, or split the song composition with them 50-50. If you can also I also do just like reach out to artists too, because that's how I find that's how I find sometimes interesting people, is just DMing them on Instagram and stuff, but it doesn't work out too well, just because I don't know, people don't want to be featured on songs a lot. All right, it's hard to know when people want to be featured on songs, because a lot of times everybody's like focusing on themselves, and so it's hard to know whether people are open to that. And that's how, using Sound Better, that they're open to sing on your track, because they're on there like selling their service, and they're usually like really good. So that's how I, like, most of the people that are featured on my songs, like that's how I found them. And they just so happen to be like in Los Angeles, and sometimes I'll do like multiple songs with these people. Splits ownership, and when in the collab do you discuss that? You should discuss that immediately before the collab. But if you're reaching out to somebody on like Instagram or email, it's a lot harder, because it's like, yeah, hey, like, do you want to sing the song, and then you just kind of like get the process going. So ideally you do that in the beginning. And so like for a feature, what I generally do is I will own the master, because you don't want more than one person to own the master, because that makes sync opportunities limited. Because if somebody wants to sync your song to a commercial, they don't want to go to multiple master owners, because then you have to have multiple people approve it. So you own the master. Either give them no master royalties and pay them, or give them master royalties and pay them but less. So you own the master. You only give them songwriting. Always give them songwriting, unless they don't ask for it. Because sometimes people don't ask for it. And if that's the case, like, keep it. You don't need to offer it to them. So keep the master. Don't need to give them royalties on the master unless they ask for it, and give them like songwriting. So what I would do is I just like pay them a flat fee so that I own the master, and then I would split songwriting 50-50 usually. But sometimes if people don't want songwriting, then don't give them songwriting. Or sometimes they'll only ask for like 25% and then give them 25%. But don't make the split in the songwriting too complicated. What's the first thing? All right, this is going to be my last question, and I'm going to get out of here. So Hannah asks, what's the first thing you do once you import and organize your stems when approaching a mix? Well, before I get the stems, if I'm getting them from someone else, or if it's my own song, like if I produce something, like I'm not labeling everything, so I have to spend a couple hours and like organize everything before I start mixing it. So the first thing is to you set up you make sure you set up the whole track, the whole session. So you got to make sure that the tempo is right. You got to make sure that you like save everything correctly. So like if you have a stem folder, put your stem folder where you have your session folder, because you don't want to take your session on your hard drive to another computer or someone else's place, and then you open it up and then it's like, oh, I left the audio files on another computer. So you need to like make sure that everything is all together within your files. So like put all of your audio, make sure all of your audio files are with your session file, whether that be like an external drive or your hard drive, because that's always super frustrating when you like open up a session and you don't have the files. So first of all, make sure that you have everything together. Hopefully the files themselves are labeled nicely, and make sure you check when you get them into the session. Make sure you have the bit depth set correctly, and also your like whether it's 44.1 or 48, because you want to know like how you're going to be exporting it. So just like work in whatever format that you're going to be exporting it at. And then I generally just start arranging things and grouping things. So in Ableton, instead of busing things, like in Pro Tools, you set up your buses. In Ableton, you set up your groups. So then I start busing everything. I group all my drums. Group all my bass, group all my instruments, and then I group all my vocals. I will also do, so for me, since I do dance music, my main buses are drums, instruments, which I also have the bass within the instruments, drums, instruments, effects, and vocals. So those are the four things that I will bus everything, my four buses. And then I will relabel everything. So drum group, DR/kick, DR/snare. So that's kind of like how I label it. And you can color code it. I just color code the four main buses. And then I will listen to it and make sure that everything is right, and kind of see what I need to do. So I'll usually start with the drums, and just make sure that everything, like, actually what I will do is if I put all my stems into my session and it's clipping my master, then I gotta take everything down, like however, I gotta gain stage everything, so I gotta take everything down like minus 10 dB or whatever, so there's enough headroom. So I gotta make sure there's enough headroom, and then I'll start just listening to how everything sounds and start leveling everything out and make sure just adjust all the levels. See if you can get it sounding good with adjusting all the levels. Put it in mono. Listen to how everything sounds in mono, and then start adding your plugins and getting the mix going and rock and roll. All right, guys, that's it for me. Hopefully that was helpful. I'm going to get out of here, but thanks for joining me. If you like this, let me know. And yeah, maybe I'll plan another one of these soon.